Hey everyone, in today's video we're discussing 3 GRE level words from the world of politics. The words for discussion in today's video are Machiavellian, gerrymandering and filibuster. Let's get started. The first of our words, Machiavellian, is an adjective. The word is actually derived, interestingly, from an Italian sort of political strategist and author by the name Niccolo Machiavelli. He lived in the late 15th century, early 16th century. He wrote a book basically called The Prince, which was published after his death. And he talks about, political strategies, how cunning and deception are actually a part of politics and so on. He's in fact considered the father of modern political philosophy. So the adjective is derived from his name and means to be cunning and scheming, especially in politics, but also when it comes to advancing your own career. Here's Machiavellian used in an example sentence. The politician's Machiavellian tactics ensured his rise to power, but at the cost of his integrity. So he used cunning, he used deception to rise to power, but that was at the cost of his integrity. It's not necessarily a positive adjective, as you can see, because it does involve, using deception for your own good. Let's look at the second word, gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is a verb and it has a very specific usage. The word is about redrawing constitutional boundaries and manipulating the boundaries of an electoral constituency so as to favor one's party or class. This is usually carried out by the ruling party. What they essentially do is, let's say that in a particular state there are 7 congressional seats or 8 congressional seats and so on. You can redraw the borders in such a manner that you end up winning the majority of the seats. I'll actually take a recent example that has been in the news. There are 7 congressional seats, I could be wrong, from South Carolina in the state in US. About a few years ago, I want to say 2020, 2021, this has been a controversy that's going on for a few years. The legislators who were in power in South Carolina redrew the borders such that basically, even though the black population in South Carolina constitutes 40% of the people, they redrew the borders in such that all the pockets of places or cities where you had the black population living ended up belonging to one constituency out, and they would therefore not have as much voice as their numbers represented. So they represented 40% of the overall population living in the city, in the state, but because they were all concentrated in one constituency now, they would now have the authority only to elect one legislator and not to elect 7 or 8 or 9 legislators. So this was an action that was taken up by the legislators in power in South Carolina. People disputed it. They filed court cases against it, saying that this was unfair and not representative of the democratic voices of people. So this process of redrawing constituencies to benefit yourself is called gerrymandering. Usually there are courses of action that can be taken. So there was a case that was filed in a lower court against South Carolina legislators. The lower court said, no, this is wrong. You should not, reorder the constituencies this way. The South Carolina legislators appealed to the Supreme Court. And that's the example sentence I actually have. A few weeks ago, the Supreme Court overruled the lower court's ruling, saying that because South Carolina had other reasons for the reconfiguration of the constituency, it was not racial gerrymandering. It was not done for racial purposes, and therefore, whatever reorganization of the constituency they have done is perfectly valid. That could very well be the case. I don't really know the political analysis of this scenario, but this has been in the news for a while. If you're interested in it, you can go ahead and read more about it because it's a current topic and people are talking about it because the next elections are coming up later this year. Presidential elections are coming up in the US. It's a good way for you to sort of connect the word to what's happening in real life and learn the word. So the third and final word for us is filibuster. Now, filibuster can be both a noun and a verb. As a noun, it refers to the act of making long speeches in order to delay a proceeding, usually in the floor of a parliament or the floor of a congress or something like that. As a verb, the action is again performing the act of delaying by making long speeches can be called filibustering as a verb as well. What is this filibustering? Why is this used in a parliament or in a congress? Essentially, a party or a representative from a party presents a bill, usually the ruling party, for approval. right? The bill has to be approved by the legislators. It has to be approved by like the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha members before it can be signed by the president, signed by the prime minister, and become law. Now, before the bill is voted on, people usually discuss it. Both parties, the ruling party, the opposition party, everybody discuss it. They present their opinions on the bill, and they talk about any modifications maybe that the opposition might suggest, and whether the ruling party is willing to accommodate those modifications. There is a bit of a negotiation process that happens on the floor of the parliament, in the floor of the Congress. Now, if a particular ruling party or a member of the ruling party is not happy with the bill and doesn't want to be passed, but they can't necessarily delay it by, prevent the bill by passing because they don't have the necessary votes, they are a minority. One way they try to make their point is to take a stand and filibuster. So they give a long speech, they go on and on, filibustering. There have been instances of one minister or one, Lok Sabha or Congress or Parliament member speaking on and on for days together as a way to prevent the voting of the bill. Because as per the law, every legislator has a say in the bill, so they can express their concerns. So people have been known to talk for hours and days just to prevent the bill from getting to the voting stage. That act is called filibuster. Here's an example. The senator threatened to filibuster the bill unless his amendments were considered. So the senator is threatening, I'm going to talk forever unless you guys consider my amendments. So those are our three interesting words for the day: Machiavellian, gerrymandering, filibuster, all of which are usually used in a political context. I also have a practice question for you, and that's a text completion question with a single blank. You have 5 options. All 5 of these words are also used in the political context. So you guys read the sentence, understand the meaning, post your answers in the comments, and we'll keep this discussion going.